My daughter returned home from in-laws with signs of abuse. Since this concern has come to light, my husband just now told me that he forgot to tell me something shocking about mother-in-law. I was a single mom with 2 children when we started dating. He has since adopted both of them. There are now concerns that something may have happened to my very young daughter after coming home from a visit with my in-laws. When I told my husband that I found blood in her panties, he told me to take her to the doctor in the morning. After a physical and blood work, it was concluded that there was no infection and the blood was from physical trauma. I brought her to my husband at work and told him the doctor was concerned about intimate trauma and asked if there was anyone in his family that we should be worried about. He told me that his brother and sister both made allegations of intimate abuse against his mother when they were teenagers, now in their late 20s, that the abuse occurred when they were roughly 3 to 7 years old, and that he simply forgot to tell me. I cannot even wrap my head around this. How does someone forget something like this? How does someone not immediately tell a potential partner before allowing very young children around this person? I can never trust him again. I cannot trust his judgment. I feel like I failed my children as a mother. I'm beside myself with grief over what may have happened to my daughter and the shambles that my marriage has become overnight. I wish I could go back. Things will never be the same. And the thought of navigating the world as a single woman with children and no support system is absolutely terrifying. We were referred to a sane nurse by the pediatrician. She did a more thorough examination that was recorded for law enforcement. She also set up a forensic interview with a special child psychologist, which we've done. Both were inconclusive. The psychologist's office has offered for the daughter to do some play therapy and she is starting to show signs of regression, including bedwetting, daytime wetting, and sleeplessness. They said that right now, there is not enough evidence to press charges, but if she discloses something in therapy, then they will move forward with criminal charges. We just have to wait and see. Which, as a mother, is the worst. ETA, to clarify, I brought her home late that night and noticed the blood as I was getting her jammies on before putting her in bed. I took her to the pediatrician for evaluation the very next morning. Upon his recommendation, I took her that afternoon to a sane nurse for a recorded exam in Atlanta. That evening I called both law enforcement and DFCS to make my reports. I brought the same recording and the clothes she was wearing as evidence to the sheriff's office the very next day and met with a special victims investigator to open a case. I also met with the DFCS caseworker that day and reported everything and opened a case with them. We took her to a forensic interview completed by a child psychologist by the end of the week and she has since been put into therapy. And obviously, she has had no further contact with any of my husband's family, especially his mother. No physical, no phone calls, nothing. Please stop telling me to do these things and telling me I'm a horrible mother for not. I've done them. ASAP. I'm doing everything I can, and drowning while doing it. Reports are already filed with DFCS and the sheriff's office. Update: this has been so incredibly difficult and emotionally exhausting for me, but it never even crossed my mind not to give 100% of my efforts to make sure my children have everything they need to move past this successfully. After thinking about it, praying on it, and trying to look at things as objectively as possible, I believe that my marriage is untenable. I cannot trust him. I cannot trust his judgment. And, when trying to look at our relationship objectively, I realize that I have no power over anything in my life and am incredibly isolated. The control that he exerts over every aspect of my and my children's lives is unhealthy and I can no longer make excuses for it. The potential abuse suffered at the hands of his mother is the most glaring issue, but pulling that thread has unraveled a king-size comforter worthy of abusive, controlling behavior. I've asked for a separation. I've brushed up my resume and applied for a job. I am enrolling the kids in public school. I've reached out to my local domestic violence shelter for help in identifying resources to gain independence and am working with them on creating a safety plan. This is terrifying, but I've done this before, and it's what's best for me and my children. I want my daughter to expect more from her future partner. I want my son to learn that this is not an acceptable way to treat a future partner.